so many people struggle with authenticity and truly being who they are, who they naturally are. And I think I might have an answer for this, as I've been somebody who had struggled a lot with authenticity. Is that a lot of times when we show up to be our authentic self in the world might, react to that in a certain way that gives us the perception that maybe we shouldn't be showing that part of ourselves. Maybe we shouldn't be this or we shouldn't be that. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe, it's not acceptable. So we have learned to shut out and shut off parts of ourselves, making us feel less authentically ourselves, but also making us feel that if we are in a certain way, if we design ourselves to be in a certain way, then maybe we fit in much more. And it's much better to fit in rather than to stand out, because fitting in means that you are safe. It means that you are part of something, that you are just like everybody else. So for me, I had to go on this path of really understanding my authenticity, because growing up, I understood that I had this sense of self. Like, I remembered being this authentic version of myself, but all of a sudden, the moment I started to go through a phase of trauma and a lot of things started to unravel in my life, I lost my authenticity. It's like when I showed up to be my authentic self, it was shut down. It was not received very respectfully, So I just learned to shut it off or shut it down and to shrink and become smaller. Now, of course, that is a very uncomfortable feeling when you have to like shrink who you are to fit in. For me, I had to walk into my authenticity. As the years have gone by, I've learned to just walk into my authenticity more, rather than before, when I had to kind of feel like I had to walk on eggshells and I couldn't really be who I am, who I knew I am on the inside. And so today we're talking about why it's so difficult, why so many people struggle to be authentically themselves. I definitely know that a lot of times we struggle with authenticity because we have showed our authentic parts to the world. We have expressed our authentic self to the world, but it was shut off. It was not received well. It was reacted in a certain way. And so it gave us this perception that maybe that's just that shouldn't be, like we should shut down that part of ourselves. We should be less of that. So I think that a lot of us lose our authenticity as we sort of get older, but the moment we start to become aware that we have lost our authenticity, then reclaiming that authenticity is very, very important, and walking towards your authentic self, now that you have the awareness that you've lost that part of yourself, is very, very important as well. We tend to lose our authenticity the moment we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe in a situation, we don't feel safe with somebody, we tend to shrink, we tend to kind of people please our way through the situation, or we try to become less of who we are because we don't feel safe enough to be who we are. And this is a very common thing. I know for myself, I've really watched myself when I'm around somebody that I don't feel safe around, or an environment that I don't feel safe in, how I shrink, I become smaller. I do not feel safe enough to be my natural, authentic self. So I become enclosed and smaller, and that can be very, very suffocating. That experience itself can be a very suffocating one, because I know that I can be more authentic, but I just don't feel safe enough to be authentically myself. At first, I was like, I'm not being who I know I truly am. Like, something doesn't feel right. I want to be more myself. And as somebody who absorbs other people's energy, it's so easy to also just be wrapped up in other people's energy, to become somebody or something that you're not, to mold yourself into another person's energy, because you yourself do not have a sense of your center. You do not have a sense of self. You don't know who you are. So it's easy to kind of become somebody else, or to mold yourself into that. And so for me, I realized that I was doing that a lot. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to be myself. I want to be more of myself. How do we walk into our authentic self? How do we begin that journey? And I know For myself, it was about finding myself. It was understanding more about myself, understanding what I like and what I don't like, gravitating more towards the things that resonate, the things that I like to do, the things that bring out more of my personality, or really spark something within myself that just allows me to be, allows me to just be as natural as I can be in that moment at least. But most importantly, it's like really gravitating towards the things that bring me excitement and joy and just feels natural, because I found that the more I do the things that feel natural to me, the more I find myself through those things, the more I grow through those things, which is such an interesting process. But it's like I do those things that resonate or feel natural to me, and then they spark something within myself that makes me feel like I can be myself, that makes me feel like I can grow through this. Finding so many things that just work for you. So many things don't work for us, but we still keep doing that, and that's when we fall into misalignment. Something as simple as like your clothing or your hairstyle, or even something as like your career, whatever works for you, you find that, because that's going to be your energy, your frequency. It's gonna be more aligned towards you, your natural, authentic self, and therefore it's going to bring more and spark more of your natural, authentic self when you do those things. And so for me, recently I found myself gravitating more towards a change of like style and clothing. I've always naturally gravitated more towards a little bit more classy, elegant, fashion sense. And for the longest time, I always knew that that's something I like that feels natural. So now it's become more intentional, where I'm like, okay, I know that this is something that I feel very comfortable in this type of clothing. I feel very comfortable wearing more timeless pieces rather than really following any trends. I'm not a fan of trends. I don't like following trends personally. It's not my thing. But I gravitate naturally more towards more elegant, classy, timeless looks, like timeless pieces of clothing. That's just my natural style. And because I always gravitated towards it, I just knew that that's going to be my fashion sense. And so that helped me to just change and shift more into something that feels more authentic. It can be something like your fashion sense, it can be something like the choice of foods that you choose on a daily basis, anything that just makes you feel like you can connect with yourself, anything that makes you feel like, yeah, this feels right, this feels aligned. And that's going to help you to really get to know more about yourself. And most importantly, and above all, it's going to feel like you. It's going to feel like, yeah, this feels aligned, this feels natural, this fits in my life. I think the next one is also just accepting yourself. Accepting, most importantly, the parts of yourself that you remember was being rejected, maybe even in childhood. A lot of times, the reason why we feel like, we need to be somebody else, or we need to mold ourselves to be somebody that we're not, is because at a very young age, or oftentimes in our childhood, we expressed our authenticity and it was shut down, maybe by our parents, maybe by society, maybe by our friends, whatever, whoever. But they kind of like shut it down because of how they reacted. And as children, we're very sensitive to the people around us. We're very sensitive to how people react towards us. So that can also, add up to how we just feel like we need to shut that part of ourselves down. And now, having the awareness that we want to really bring more acceptance into our life, especially in those areas of our life where we had to shut it off or shut it down, that can really help us to just accept our authenticity. The more we accept our authenticity, the better it's going to be for us, because then we just get to allow ourselves to like relax and just be ourselves. We allow our nervous system to just calm down and to feel a sense of safety in our authenticity, which then will allow us to be more of ourselves. The more safety you feel in being yourself or allowing yourself to be yourself, the more you invite more of that authenticity into your life. You just accepting parts of yourself that at some point you thought that you need to shut it down or shut it off because it wasn't fully accepted by society or by people around you, will allow you to really accept yourself, will allow you to open the door into your authenticity, and it will invite more of your authentic self into your energy and allow you to just be more natural, be more yourself, and that really adds up over time. The more you work through accepting those parts, and if you can remember which parts of yourself that you had to kind of shut down in like childhood. When we are younger, we are so naturally ourselves. We are all that we are. The world hasn't really conditioned us to believe that we need to be somebody we're not as yet. So we are authentically ourselves until we become more aware and we start to conceptually understand the world. That's when things kind of switch over. But before that, we are our natural, authentic self. And so, the more we accept these parts of ourselves that shut off, the more natural we can be as we were when we were younger, all that we were. It really helps us to also connect with our inner child. Just doing a lot of this work helps us to really connect with our inner child who had to shut off parts of herself or himself when they were younger because they just felt like that it wasn't safe to be who you are. It wasn't safe to be yourself around people. It wasn't safe enough to be all that you are. Sometimes I do still struggle a lot with authenticity, especially when I don't feel safe in an environment or a situation or by a person. But it is something that I had to learn over time to kind of walk back into my authenticity, finding myself, understanding myself, and accepting myself. And through that, just opening a portal to just self acceptance and, most importantly, my authentic self, and to actually see what my authentic self looks like. So because of trauma and everything, I kind of just lost my authenticity. I became inauthentic and I could feel that, and it made me so uncomfortable. And so for me, it's still a process. We oftentimes hear a lot about authenticity, but to somebody who had to go through the journey of losing your authenticity, not because you wanted to lose your authenticity, but because maybe you had to go through certain circumstances that weren't safe enough for you to express your authenticity. So you had to mold yourself into somebody not just to fit in and to feel safe. And that's okay because many of us do that. It's like a no choice type of option that we have to go through. But to then come full circle, have the awareness to change that, to walk back into authenticity, that is also really, really important to be able to catch it, to catch when we are not being our full self, to understand why, and most importantly, to make the decision to try to be more authentic. When you are not being authentic, you can feel it. It's like more like a resistant type of energy. It's more like a unnatural type of energy that you feel within yourself, within your nervous system, and you want to feel the opposite of that. Comment down below some of your experience with your authenticity and how that journey has been for you. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video has helped you in some way. Thank you so much for receiving, and I'll see you in the next video.